Hi, welcome to another episode of Swarajya Standpoint. Every opposition party against the farm bill, they're calling it the death of farmers in India. They're calling it the death of agriculture in India, of the farming sector in India. Even the allies are starting to move away. The long allies who've been with the NDA for more than 20 years, on the state level for almost 40 years, even they are moving away. So what is that opposition is getting wrong about these three farm bills, which we've discussed at length in other videos also? What are they getting wrong about this entire thing? That is what we're going to discuss today. But here's an interesting point. In 2019, the Congress party, the same Congress party, which is now leading a campaign against these farm bills, it said that it will repeal the APMC Act. It will make the mandis more liberated for the farmers, more liberal for the farmers when it comes to selling their produce. In 2014 elections, before the 2014 elections, the Congress wanted the state governments where the Congress was present to denounce fruits and vegetables from the APMC Act. In 2003 and 7, attempts were made by then UPA government to liberalize the APMC Act. So for long, as even Sanjay Jha, a former spokesperson of the Congress party, remarked, the Congress has been in favor of repealing the APMC Act, of getting away with the mandi system, the middlemen that exist. And today it's opposing the same when the NDA government is doing it. At this length, if the Congress keeps on going, their 2024 manifesto should be of one single line, which says to protest everything the NDA supports, because that is what is really happening. Nevertheless, we'll jump into points one by one to discuss why the opposition is wrong about these farm bills in their perception and the entire narrative. Well, firstly, the Congress said that the farm bills they were going to be pro-farmer and they were not going to be open to private entities. And secondly, the big concern is that this entire dismantling of the APMC that might result in the doing away with the MSPs, the minimum support prices for the farmers. This is the general perception that is going on. The Congress thinks that they could have liberalized the market for the farm produce in India without having any private players in there, which is honestly a little confusing, because how can you have an open market but restrict it to just the private players? Because then you already have your government agencies procuring from the farmers already under a APMC or under the mandis as they are right now. Then why wouldn't you open the markets and allow the private players, say a JioMart, which might want to take the produce directly from the farmers and sell it to people, or many housing societies in the likes of Noida, in the likes of Pune, Bangalore, Hyderabad, which are now procuring their produce directly from the farmers. In many cities where societies are very prevalent, it's not uncommon to see farmers coming directly to the society to sell their produce. So why is it so surprising for the Congress if private players are in there? The first thing is that the farmers' MSP fear, it's not entirely correct. For one simple reason, the government has said that the APMC will remain, for one. The MSP procurement will still happen by the likes of Food Corporation of India. Of course, the private players are expected to make the prices a bit volatile. Probably the farmers will have to be far more competitive in their pricing. But even then, the farmers which want to stick with the FCI procuring, the Food Corporation of India procuring, or the state government procuring, they can go on with it. And even then, the government has been very much on its target of procurements. To give you an example, the target procurement for Kharif paddy was increased almost to 49.5 million tons, almost 20%. So it's not like the government has stopped procuring food grains. The government is on its way to procure food grains, but the farmers which have a surplus of produce, they might want to sell outside. That will help them. The farmers which want to stick to the conventional route of MSPs, they will also be supported by the government. So this entire fear of MSP, that is for one, misplaced. Second, even if the APMCs, for one wild second we assume were to do away, even if the APMCs were gone, they were no longer existence, the government would still procure, the government would still need funds. If people have forgotten, 80 crore people are being fed under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana right now. 80 crore people, that's almost 2/3 of the population of India. So the government will obviously always require goods procurement, the produce procurement. So even if the APMCs were to go, and this is an assumption, this is not happening. This is an assumption that even if the APMCs were to go away, the procurement would still continue. So the question of MSPs going away, the farmers being at the mercy of the private players, is absolutely hogwash. It's absolutely a fake narrative. That's the second aspect. The third aspect is that the farmers get greater control. And this is where the opposition is wrong. Now, I'll take an example from the Fadnavis government in Maharashtra. What did they do? They came up with a farmer producer organization. This was a way to get 10, 15, 20, 25, whatever number farmers together, negotiate a deal for their produce with the private player. And in this process, more than 1400 FPOs were launched. 400 of them have registered themselves as private players. And these farmers have come together to form an MPO, which perhaps they share a common produce, perhaps they share a common market, perhaps they want to get a similar price in a certain market. So these FPOs have also liberated the farmers. Now with this dismantling of the APMC, more FPOs can come up in other parts of India. For instance, if in Punjab, I'm giving you a wild example, if there are 15 farmers who own 0.5 hectare of land, they can come together, grow use that 7.5 hectares of land to grow a crop, sell it to a certain society, which let's say may have 2,500 houses, an average of 10,000 people living there. They can do stuff like this. They're liberated now. They don't have to go through a middleman. They don't have to pay a cess, and they can be paid for their produce there and then. That is an excellent move by the government, and this is what the opposition is not getting, that the liberation of the farmer from the APMC opens up a variety of routes from them, and they won't always be at the mercy of private players. Perhaps the farmers in this case might get to decide the private players. The fourth point is that the state revenues are dependent on these cesses which come from the APMC. So it's not very uncommon for the state governments to oppose it. The other reason the state governments are giving it that, oh, it's agriculture is a state subject, which it is. But the constitution gives the parliament to define a law, to create a law which supersedes the one created by the state government. So I don't think where the problem is. The question of Shiromani Akali Dal quitting the NDA, or rather Harsimrat Kaur Badal resigning from the cabinet, I discussed that. That was more of a political question, but it also makes a point about the APMC cartels that exist. These cartels, these middlemen, they are on the ground. They have great political advantage. They are very much invested in the political realities over there. So the parties are obviously interested in catering to their interests, and hence the opposition to the APMC. And lastly, coronavirus. Now, coronavirus has changed everything around here. It's changed basically everything. People are no longer interested in going to the mandis. Now imagine Delhi having 5,000 active cases every day, and people expected to go to Azadpur Mandi to procure their produce or procure their vegetables and fruits, which is rather one of the largest mandis in Asia. Why not farmers have the choice not to sit in that mandi, but to take their produce to the societies of NCR? This is one example I'm giving you. Why can't the farmers do that? These are 5 case studies I've taken up just to tell why the opposition is wrong in its protest of the Farm Bill. These 3 bills which are being tabled right now, 2 of them have passed in the Rajya Sabha, one of them is expected to very shortly. They're going to change the fortunes of farming in India. They're going to get more private players invested. And of course, the government procurement, the regulation, everything will always be there. The opposition parties which are protesting it for the heck of it, as many are seeing it, even their own party people are seeing it, they really need to introspect and think if it's the farmer interest are they catering or their own political interests.